don't know about a division, I'm just one person at the moment, but I'm hoping we will be. So today I'm going to just step aside from what we were talking about and maybe encompass a lot of different areas. So part of it is this creating a climate for investment. A lot of people today have talked about things like government policy and the getting the right raw materials and a lot of work on that. Well, I put this into a pillar situation where what we have to do is gather these 5 pillars together to get investment. And by investment, in what we're doing in biomanufacturing is looking at companies like Dow and Dulux and Boeing and Ford and a lot of other companies. While they might have money to invest, you have to have the right climate for them to invest in the right place. And they obviously want the best return on their investment. So this really puts into picture what we really need to do. So the energy security in terms of AP, we devour power. We're 7 picojoules of gas. We already create on our own site 55 megawatts of our own power, but we need to be really self-sufficient. So the energy security in our site was a project we started about 18 months ago, and to say where we are today is quite phenomenal to get to the point where we've got the feasibility study running and the team's done an amazing work to get this on board. So energy security for us is really, really important to keep those. And don't forget, an Australian paper has 6,000 workers, 1,100 are direct, and the rest are the indirect workers that carry our freight around everywhere. So there's a lot of workers and a lot of money on the valley there. We have to secure this. I heard before the word sustainability. The Japanese MPI who own AP, they have their definition of sustainability, and their definition is that they're here for the next 10, 20 and 30 years, and there's jobs here for our children and our children's children. That's their version of sustainability. AP has been around since 1937 in the valley, and the site is an MHF site, a major hazard facility. That's the highest qualification you actually can get on a site. We have all the EPA requirements on that site. We have a large site. We have a 5-kilometre industrial zone around the site. So AP is situated in a very good position. And being here for so long, we're already very much established in the valley. So is it the right site to do the work that we're talking about? Absolutely. Then we talk about the raw materials and feedstocks. Today we've talked about coal and the very uses of coal and changes to hydrogen. We bring into AP in terms of number 1.8 million tonnes of trees a year. That's 5,000 tonne a day that we process through the plant. That 5,000 tonne of biomass trees that comes to the plant forms about 600,000 tonnes of paper and about 680,000 tonne of what we call black liquor on the site. That black liquor we use to burn on that site. But with the Energy to Waste project and the other initiatives that we're doing, we hope we can release about 50,000 tonne initially into this new biomanufacturing process. As we heard earlier on in the CCS, that you need the right government policy, you need the government on board to move this down. So our cell's quite easy. We're renewable, we're sustainable. We've been here for a long period of time and the industry is actually growing. But the government policy is important. When we did the feasibility study or asked for the money for the feasibility study, it wasn't so much about the amount, it's about the intent that government has skin in the game and will move this along. There's over 500 energy to waste plants in Europe alone, so we're just following suit with what they're doing. And when you make waste to energy and you have it across the face as steam, as heat, you're 90% efficient. So that's a good cell to have. But what we don't have at the moment is the right skills in the valley to take this further. We don't have the skills in the areas that we really need. So part of what I'll talk about today is we're developing, and we hope to get an announcement very soon, what we call the Workforce Innovation Training Fund, the Biopathways Partnership. And this is really aimed at building the skills that we need for the industry of the future to bring a new industry into the valley. Brian did an awfully good job of getting this out today. I had to put this slide on my presentation today when I came in. This was actually put out today. So congratulations on that, to say that you actually got this today. And this really, they've obviously been looking over our shoulders what we're talking about doing there. Prosperity Through Innovation report that came out. And there's 30 recommendations. There's really 5 key criteria. Education, which I'll talk about. The industry, ensure ongoing prosperity. The government have to be involved and become a catalyst for this. and the culture and ambition. So what we talk about today is some of the things that get community engagement and moving this on. So if you go to this when you leave here and look at what they're writing, it's exactly what we've been talking about today. And having a seminar in innovation, and no matter what, in what space, this is probably one of the things that couldn't come out at a better time. So Australian paper. When was the last time someone actually bought a newspaper? Actually went out and bought a newspaper? We got one in the newspaper. So everyone thinks all the time that the paper industry is in decline. Australian paper, we've never been busier. We have never been busier. The market in e-commerce has moved around the world to $28 billion. The space is moving very rapidly. The space in a lot of other areas is moving as rapidly as that. So AP is well established, 80 years. It's our 80th anniversary this year, on the 25th of March. We'll have an open day at the mill, and you're all welcome to come along and have a look at what we do. So it's a significant industry sector in terms of not only the people that we employ in the sector and around the sector, but in the skills that we have. AP is a very, very digitized site. The paper industry as such is evolving. We're not dying, we're evolving, we're growing and we're changing, and an AP is in a situation where we're actually changing very, very rapidly what we do. In terms of what we produce, packaging is growing monstrously. 3% doesn't sound very much. In terms of just corrugated boxes alone, so the stuff that you get your groceries in or you get delivered from eBay, 1 million tonnes a year in Australia alone. 3%, 30,000 tonnes a year. So that market, that space is growing. However, the real heavyweight in paper is tissue. Tissue's growing at a phenomenal rate, mainly due to the middle class development in China and India. Tissue's growing at a much rapid rate than any other market space. So we're mature. And pulp and paper is an industry that is going to change. Let me talk about my space and the growth sectors that we've got. We talked a little about the waste for energy, and that's something that for Australia and for Victoria and for Gippsland, we absolutely have to do. With what's happening in the China market, it's been all over the papers, we have to control our own waste and what we do with that waste, and converting that waste into energy is a bloody good start. So it's an important piece. We said we were going to do it, and we're well down the track of that, and the team working on that has really done, in the time that we've got, quite a phenomenal job. But my space, my area is in looking at the black liquor that we have. So the process in the black liquor, and as Bronwyn talked about, and we've talked a great deal, those who don't know, this piece, and I'll pass this around, this is the lignin that we extract from that black liquor, and the lignin might be the start of another industrial revolution. So lignin is a space in the industrial chemistry world, but we can also make a whole range of other products. We can make the platform chemicals for paint. At the moment, when you paint your house, you get this very strong solvent smell. It's now a known carcinogen. It's now been banned in California and Ohio and 5 other states in the US. Where are these platform chemicals going to come from? Who's going to make these chemicals in these processes? Who's going to extract those processes? The petrochemical industry. When I started in the paper industry 35 years ago, we had a saying, you can make anything you want out of lignin, except money. And to the point where the development of these industries and these products is going on, and I'll show you in a slide later on what's happening around the rest of the world. We're looking at pharmaceuticals, and we're looking at an area where if you have lipstick, you're probably already using this product anyway. You're probably already taking this product and using this. And we're going to develop that a lot more, and textiles. So we all know the issue of growing cotton, certainly in Australia, where we can make textiles, clothes, out of the cellulose, out of the paper that we make today. And the last of it, fuels. I put fuels last because that's for us one of the lower sources of value-added change, but it's one of those things that you potentially can make, and to that extent we have looked at it and we have made it, and we are looking at another space in there. In Europe, it's probably not the forum to say this, but yesterday there was a note to say that European energy has been derived more from renewables than coal for the first time yesterday. That happened. So it's happening. In the Central European paper industry, they're investing 3.7 billion euros in this space. So that lignin that's going around the room, that's what they're looking at. That space is what they're looking at. 3.7 billion euros, $6 billion. For all of us here scrapping around trying to get a few bucks off the government, put that in perspective. That's what's happening in Europe at the moment, and that's what's moving on. And when you invest that sort of money, you certainly hope for a return on that investment. So to that end, they're talking about a new 1.3 million employees in this space. In March last year, we had VTT from Finland come here. VTT said, this is in the Valley, Australian paper, is the most unique industry site they've ever seen. They said that in Finland, which is a country slightly smaller than Finland, they will have 100,000 people working in this space by 2025. That puts that in perspective. Canada's an amazing job. In Canada, back in 2006, they were saying we were fat, dumb and happy, and they didn't see it coming. 13.8 million tonnes of newsprint they made in Canada. In 2006, when they got hit, first of all, with the demise of newsprint. No one buys newspapers anymore because of the electronic industry. But also the mortgage crisis. Some 13.8 million tonnes, they're now down to 5 million tonnes. They've had to totally resurrect their industry. In Canada, they didn't shut a couple of mills, they shut hundreds of mills, they shut towns. So if you're working in a town with a paper mill and you had a house, it's now worthless. So they've totally reinvigorated. And if you're interested in this space, the FP Innovation site is certainly the site to look at. So Canada's talking, in their official terms, about 60,000 new jobs. And they're certainly putting a lot of money into the space. And if I bring you back home to Queensland, for the first time, us Victorians are looking at Queensland to say that they're way ahead of the game. Queensland are so far ahead in developing what they call their biofutures. They already signed a contract with the US Green Navy to supply them with green fuels. In their audited reports, they're talking about 6,640 new jobs in Queensland. And before we even start, we're already bigger because of the site and where we are. So that's the background. That's the background to what we're going to talk about. So the Biopathways Partnership is between Federation University, Federation Training as the RTO, and Australian Paper to try and develop the skills that we need for the future. And the skills that we need for the future, what people talked about today. How do you operate pyrolysis at an industrial level? 50,000 tonnes. I'll go back to that number again. 50,000 tonnes is my goal for the first area. Not a kilo of nanofibre, but 50,000 tonnes of product is what I have to move in order to make the mill more efficient and more self-sufficient, and to produce a range of products from that. So what we're looking at with the biopathways is develop a whole series of Cert 2, Cert 3, Cert 4, and all the way up to diploma of education programs where we actually train our local people. In the mill, our biggest problem is skills, is retention. We bring down process engineers, graduates from Melbourne and elsewhere. We give them the best training in the world, and then they go. And we have to do it again and again and again. When we find that people who live and work in the valley, they stay in the valley. So what we want to do really is make Federation University and Federation Training the central hub of this new learning skill and build this new industry that's going around the room in Victoria and build those skills. But delve even further down into years 6, 7 and 8. Develop that interest in this area to begin with in a renewable, sustainable and a growing industry. If you put in 3.7 billion euros in, you're going to grow something. And develop the knowledge and the space of what we actually have to do. We're hoping within this month this will be announced. It's been on the cards. We've got the nod that's going to be awarded and move this forward. So the project really focuses on the research and educational needs. It's not just scientists sitting in some sort of a lab on the computer punching out numbers. It's about developing that knowledge in the space. For instance, in Dulux, who we've had a great deal of conversation with, if we have to encourage them to come down to the valley to invest, with all those pillars for investment, we have to have the right skills. We don't have enough people to work in the labs. We don't have the skill set for that to happen. We don't have the skills for people to be able to do the testing in the labs. So that's the first level of it. We don't have the people that can work on the equipment and do the chemistry they need. We have to develop that. And those year 6, 7, 8 kids in our schools today are going to be these workers of the future in this new emerging economy. Bronwyn talked about the work being done at Ford and Boeing and Mercedes. We're talking to the same people and the same experience with the same people about developing not only the carbon fibre, but using initiatives such as co-extrusion, where lignin might not be the best thing to make carbon fibre out of, but you can maybe co-extrude it. That's a piece. About the resin, so a lot more weight in resin goes into carbon fibre than the actual carbon fibre to do that and lightweight it. And if I go to Ford or I go to Mercedes or I go to any of the big car manufacturers in the world and say, I can make your next electric car out of a tree, and it won't look like a Fred Flintstone's car, it'll look like a proper car. I can make it out of a tree. Do you think they're interested? They're interested. And when I show them what we've already done in carbon fibre, where it's been put in, and right down to this PET bottle, if you compare it to the one that's on your table, you'll see that this bottle is a little bit not so clear. However, this is early development of a PET that's 100% bio-PET. So we were introduced about things that may be happening in the future. These are happening now. The plastics that we referred to before, we've already done them. But now we have to take it from that lab scale and we have to roll that out. So within the space, chemists, engineers, wood scientists are moving towards making this a reality. And what we really want to do is make this the centre of Gippsland's development and learning going forward. We may be 5 years away, but right now I don't have the skills to run this. So the biopathways has certain needs in terms of this biorefinery concept. So a biorefinery concept is, unlike coal, the black liquor is new and it's fresh. It's only just been made. It doesn't have all the chemical interactions in that process. It's fresh. So what we do with that is we don't have to cook it as much. We can make the other derivative products very, very, very quickly of it. If the PET market isn't going strong, we'll make something else out of it. But we have a lot of product to make. So we have this refinery concept that we're trying to look at Australian papers being a integrated bio-refinery where we take different processes, different products, engage with the industrial community to get them to engage in the ability to make those products. And of course, we have this thing called a train that goes backwards and forwards. AP moves around about 600,000 tonne of product. We move the train 6 times a week into Melbourne. We're the largest single container user at the Port of Melbourne. So it's a lot of shipping that we do, and the logistics there already in place to make that work. The head of the CEPI, who's got the $3.7 billion, says that part of the transformation is education, this skill gaining, this new area. So it's pointless having those skills in the labs. We have to roll those skill sets out and develop this whole process. So opportunities for us at the moment in the Valley, we need to build this new industry. So what I'm showing you isn't pie in the sky, it exists around the world. The process, the products are there. As you heard today from Bronwyn, some of those skills that we need. Australia has some of the best skills in carbon fibre production. We have the best skills in chemistry. We've always been the clever company. We have the right processes in place. We need to put the two of those together. We need to transition to this new bioeconomy. We need to think about what we're doing in a renewable and sustainable environment and develop the circular economy that we're talking about. So the materials that we throw away come back, go to the waste-to-energy plant, provide that energy for the plant to keep going. The trees that we have around the site, they're all plantation stocks, suck up the carbon that we actually use, and then we reprocess them again and again and again. For 5,000 years, the earth was an agricultural economy. For this brief period of time, we've been a fossil fuel-based society, but we are going back to this agricultural society. So the circular economy is a really important piece. Part of developing biopathways, and this is really important, is to bring in the best available resources. And those resources in a brand new industry, in a brand new area, are pretty rare as people develop these. So we'll scour the world. We've already started to work on the next piece, which is the anaerobic digestion piece. The mill produces 600,000 tonne of paper. There's 100 tonne of water for every tonne of paper. We have a lot of anaerobic digestion to look at and develop, but because we're already an MHF site, we can develop some of the skills that we need on the site to roll that out to other industries. Those other industries are the producers of some of that biomass product, the milk industry, the meat industry, the abattoir industry, and provide them back with the energy they need to run. Again, a circular economy running, but who's going to run those anaerobic digestion plants? We don't have the skills for it. The part of the future from that year 7 all the way through is the future jobs and employment. What's that going to look like in the future? Yesterday, I had a different seminar to talk to a group of salespeople about a new process and new product, and I told them, what you sell today will not be what you sell tomorrow. The world is changing, and it's changing rapidly. Unless you grow with it and change with it, if you stay in the past, you're going to be left well behind. So biopathways is a very important key pillar to developing the skills, the businesses that we need in the future. Thank you.